The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Hello folks, welcome back to Harrogate once again. Now you find me at the beginning of this episode outside what appears to be a cemetery. Well, it is a cemetery, but it used to be a churchyard. The church has since moved from here to somewhere else in this parish, which we will see later, of course. This is now just a beautiful little nature reserve, kind of in the middle of nowhere, because it's not surrounded really by anything apart from trees and hedges and fields and all that kind of stuff. This is Marton cum Grafton. Marton cum Grafton, Pool Farm with Grove Farmstead. This weekend in Harrogate we're taking on the parish of Marton cum Grafton, which is a little bit of an anomaly in these parts. You see, a lot of the villages around this one occupy some flat land, a broad open area that was once described by the famous novelist Anne Bronte as boring. Marton cum Grafton is different. It has two settlements, namely Marton and Grafton, and has a magnesian limestone and sandstone geography which has been used for quarrying in the past. Although the landform is still broadly flat, there are some small foothills in this one. As a result, Marton and Grafton sit some 98 feet apart in terms of elevation, despite being just half a mile away from one another. Ancient civilizations took advantage of this higher than average ground. Archaeological evidence shows that just to the south of Grafton there was once an Iron Age fort. Marton and Grafton are contiguous, and since 1979 they've comprised one conservation area. There are two church sites in the parish, one containing the modern Christ Church with the second oldest bell in the country, and the other being a small nature reserve where an old one once sat. The villages have both been associated with celebrities. TV actor Neil Morrissey was once the man at the helm of the local pub, the Punch Bowl, and his experience was even chronicled on TV. Former cricketer David Bairstow also lived here until his untimely death. Let's go walking, everyone! As ever, let's get started with the maps, and this is what Marton cum Grafton looked like some 125 years ago. Little has altered since these times. You can clearly see that both villages are well defined in their own rights, with two centres of population, one in Marton, the other in Grafton. To be honest, that's pretty much the same now. Although they are considered all one village by many people today, the two places still retain their own identities. They are certainly different when you consider their elevations on the landscape. Grafton is some 98 feet higher than Marton. Let's run through what was here in 1900. Marton was the largest holding of Gospatrick, and here he had a hall. The site of that hall is well documented on early OS maps, and it's even marked on these. When this map was produced, the church you see here was in its infancy, having only been standing for 25 years. You can see there's a school marked close by. That hasn't altered, it's still very much going. The chapel on this junction, though, has definitely altered. The building is still there, but it's no longer religious. The same can be said for the other chapel further up the hill into Grafton. We'll discover what's become of both of those buildings as we walk around. The historic gravel quarrying industry is clearly marked on this map. On Grafton Hills you can see the works. These days you can walk through those, although it's a bit bumpy underfoot and very hilly. Not shown here is the local pub for some reason, but it was definitely in operation at this time. And so this is how all of that translates into the modern settlement. As you can see, nothing has really altered. The main area of change, if there is one, is to the southwest, where an area of new builds has taken over one corner of Marton. Otherwise, the shape and form of it all is identical. So, here's the route. We'll start by checking out the old church site in Marton before heading up to the school to begin the walk. From there, we'll find our way to the new church before heading north into Grafton via the two old chapels and the Punch Bowl Inn, the local pub. Walking through Grafton will then be an uphill slog for a short way as we get ourselves to the summit of Grafton Hills. Once there, we'll be treated to some views over the Vale of York, accompanied by a water tower, a trig point, and the local playing field. After that, it's a simple walk back down to the Punch Bowl to form a neat circuit of both villages. On the route, we'll see a Millennium sundial, and we'll discover how these villages were once made famous by the actor Neil Morrissey. The church in Marton, which we'll see on our main walk in a moment, is a rebuilding. There was a previous church. In fact, there were several. They all stood right here on a small piece of land to the south of the village, which is now a small nature reserve instead. Several sources reckon this plot has held a church since Saxon times. There is no hard structural evidence to back up that theory, although isolated fragments make it clear there was something here pre-conquest. Whatever it was likely associated with a manor house held by Gospatrick. If the original church here was Saxon, it was a small, crudely built structure measuring 48 feet by 15. The arch to the nave was exceptionally narrow at just over 3 feet, although that was due to some very thick walls. Some say it was built like that on purpose in an attempt to keep the Normans out. In the 14th century, an incursion by an invading Scottish army saw both Marton and Grafton being burned and razed to the ground. Before this church was demolished in 1873, you could still see evidence of burning on the nave walls, despite the fact it was rebuilt soon after the invasion. The church was rebuilt again in the 16th century after being in a ruinous state for some 60 years. Its chancel was added soon afterwards, and so was its tower. It would remain pretty much the same until it was demolished on the orders of the Reverend John Lunn, a well-known musician. OS maps produced in 1855 show there was a vicarage opposite this churchyard. That likely indicates the site of an original Norman or earlier priest's house. It's known for sure that by 1855 the proper vicarage, as in the one used by the actual vicar of the time, was located elsewhere in Marton. Let's drive into Marton and see what the modern village is like. Marton cum Grafton would initially seem to be a typical quiet Yorkshire backwater village, where little has changed over the centuries. That's only really true on a hyper-local level. At the height of the last ice age, Marton cum Grafton lay beneath a large ice sheet which filled the Vale of York, spreading out from the Yorkshire Dales and down from the Stainmore Gap, which, by the way, is the A1's junction with the A66. About 18,000 years ago, the ice sheet began to retreat northwards, thinning and melting over time. Marton cum Grafton was probably first exhumed from beneath the ice sheet around 15,000 years ago. Some sediments in the base of Marton Carr date from about 12,000 years ago. During its retreat, the ice sheet paused at Marton cum Grafton, depositing a large accumulation of glacial debris. The steep slope that separates the two villages today marks the standstill location. At one time, Marton was ice-free, but Grafton was still buried underneath it. Once the ice sheet had finally gone, warmer temperatures encouraged the spread of vegetation across the Vale of York. So, until about 5,000 years or so ago, a dense woodland would have covered this landscape, probably made mostly of oak, elm, alder and hazel. It's not quite the same today. Okay, we have made it into the main village. This is Marton and Grafton is to the north. You might be able to hear in the background there's some children because our first port of call is the school here in this place. I'm going to be careful where I point this camera. We begin our walk on Rees Lane, and first up we've got the local school. This was built in 1861 and it's seen as one of the most important buildings in Marton. It should be noted that it's more than one building. The front is the old schoolmaster's house, and the larger original school room is behind it. We know this today as Marton cum Grafton C of E Voluntary Aided Primary School. It has an excellent reputation in the local community, and it serves an area that includes some outlying farms and even part of Borough Bridge. This school joined the Elevate Multi-Academy Trust in 2019. One for the long-time viewers. Do you remember Wing in Rutland just before the autumn break and how we mentioned the Swedish houses there? I reckon they are also Swedish houses. They look very similar, don't they? Next is the modern church in Marton. This was built in 1875, reusing much of the carved stone from the previous building. Known as Christ Church, this houses the second oldest church bell in the country, dating from the 12th century. Inside, the font dates from 1320, and it's well worth seeing too. This building was designed by John Lads in the early English style and was consecrated in 1876. As its vicar was the musician John Lunn, the consecration ceremony was accompanied by Schubert's Mass No. 1. It was claimed at the time to be its first ever performance in an Anglican church. Christ Church is built of sandstone with a Welsh slate roof. It consists of a nave, a north porch and a chancel with a south vestry. On the west gable is an open double bellcote. The north doorway incorporates a Norman door head with a tympanum containing a cross in a roundel. There's quite a few websites out there that I was reading before I came here that recommended Marton cum Grafton for a nice walk, and to be honest with you, so far it hasn't disappointed. The village hall is a shared entity between the two villages, although being located in Marton, it terms itself the Marton Memorial Hall. As you can likely tell, this didn't originate as a village hall. This was a chapel once used by the Primitive Methodists. The Wesleyans had their own chapel too. Originally known as Marton cum Grafton Primitive Methodist Chapel, this is another building that's been reconstructed. The first chapel was opened in 1820, but it's not known if that stood here or elsewhere in Marton. In 1882, though, the foundation stones of this chapel were laid. Described in records as neat and convenient, the replacement chapel was also a school. Now no longer in use religiously, Marton Memorial Hall still has a dual purpose. Part of it doubles as the post office and Spellow shop, a name you may recognise from the Wixley video. There is only one pub in Marton, and it's this on the next corner. This is the Punch Bowl Inn, or if you prefer, Ye Olde Punch Bowl Inn. Old is certainly correct here because this pub has been serving the community since the 16th century and still contains a number of original features. As a 16th century building, the likelihood is that it was never built as a pub. It was, according to the experts, probably a two-bay house at first. The oldest section is still timber framed today. In the 18th century, it was greatly extended and converted into a coaching inn. In the 20th century, it was extended, and in the 1950s and 1960s, it operated as a roadhouse with a motoring theme. It was an ideal spot for such an establishment, given we're close to the Great North Road here. The building was given a Grade 2 listing in 1984. Its lease was once part owned by the actor Neil Morrissey. The experience of buying that lease and setting up the pub and its own microbrewery was even turned into a TV programme called Neil Morrissey's Risky Business. That aired on Channel 4 in late 2008. That celebrity ownership and its beer certainly attracted plenty of media attention, probably more than it's ever had before throughout its long history. The pub was later purchased by Provenance Inns in 2017, and in 2022 it won Best Food Offer at the Publican Awards. Now we're heading into Grafton. The boundary between the two villages is not well defined, but a good marker would be the former Grafton Wesleyan Methodist Chapel. Rebuilt or extended in 1901 according to a date stone on its wall, this is one of the main entrance properties to the village. No longer a chapel, this is now a house. It's made of red brick and has buff-coloured details, including quoins, window surrounds and string courses. The windows have lancet heads and the three on the front gable are particularly prominent. The roof is Welsh slate. I think we can safely say we are in Grafton now. There's no signboard that tells you that you've crossed from Marton into Grafton, but yeah, we are definitely in Grafton at this point. And this village has a lot more in terms of grand houses. Check that one out behind me for a start. Isn't that magnificent? And if you lived in that house, you'd have this view every morning up this hill. And that's where we're about to go. But not before we've checked out what's on the green. Just here. Upon reaching Grafton's main street, the first thing you see here is a pleasant and attractive green. This is quite a large grassed area, and a flat part near the road is the site of the Millennium Sundial. If you stand on this, wherever your shadow falls will tell you the time, provided it's a sunny day of course. From the sundial, it's then uphill slightly through the rest of Grafton using the main street, Thorny Hill Lane. When you get close to the brow of the hill, it becomes a lot more leafy as you enter a small woodland. A footpath to the right will take you to Grafton Hills. Grafton Hills are, along with nearby Wood Hills, the highest point for some 20 miles around here. The Vale of York, as we know, is generally flat, but Grafton offers you some fabulous views thanks to its position of relative elevation, and on a hill can be a good place to put certain things. This is Grafton Water Tower, ideally sited high above the village given that these work using gravity and pressure. Grafton Water Tower provides a focal point for both villages when viewed from afar. Both this and the woods that surround it are features of Marton cum Grafton's conservation area. Next to the tower is a triangulation point marked by this small white tower. Again, this is a feature that makes total sense on a hilltop. Standing at 75 metres above sea level, this is one of many thousands of high point markers used by map makers. This was once the site of an Iron Age hill fort, and you, like those ancient ancestors, can enjoy excellent views from here. The ups and downs you experience on Grafton Hills are the result of this ground having been used to quarry gravel in the not too distant past. Below the hills you can see the playing field, the main area of sporting endeavours in Marton and Grafton. It's a typically scenic setting for a Nidderdale Cricket League game, and indeed that is one of the sports that's played here. You can also play tennis here too, given there's a set of courts. On the cricket theme, that brings us to this place's most famous former resident. Cricket lovers will no doubt recognise David Bairstow. He was one of the most well-known Yorkshire cricketers of the modern era. He was the father of Johnny Bairstow, another cricketer you may well know of. He lived in Marton cum Grafton in his final years, although he was actually born in Bradford. He excelled at school in several sports and even played football several times for Bradford City. Eventually he settled on cricket and played his first county match against Gloucestershire in 1970. He played more than 400 times for his county in a first-class career lasting 20 years, scoring almost 13,000 runs, taking 907 catches and also captaining them for a spell in the 1980s. He also played Test cricket for England and retired in 1990 to run a sports merchandise business. In addition to his merchandise business, after retirement, he also became a popular radio commentator, working for the BBC. However, at the age of 46, he lost a long battle with depression. He committed suicide at his home in Marton cum Grafton. He took an overdose of tablets initially, and although he did survive that, a few weeks later he was found hanging. Despite his struggles, the coroner in the case recorded an open verdict, saying he was not convinced that Bairstow had meant to kill himself. David Bairstow had two sons, both of whom went on to play cricket professionally. Andrew played fleetingly for Derbyshire, but it's Johnny, the wicketkeeper and batsman for both Yorkshire and England, you're likely to know better. He wears number 51 as a tribute to his father's birth year. Well, I tell you this much, people, you have to put in some effort to get up here. Grafton Hills are very, very steep, and if you want to go and visit that trig point, be careful because the steps up to it, there's one missing, so yeah, careful not to fall over and hurt yourself or anything like that. Now we have really just got one job left here in this one, and that is to follow the footpath which is near the trig point and the water tower. This one here, this will take us back down to the punch bowl, and that will complete the route. And so we have completed another Harrogate Parish. You can put Marton cum Grafton in the books. There's still one gap remaining on the eastern side of the district, and tomorrow we'll fill that in. Join me for a walk through a village that shares its name with a town in Derbyshire. just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.